Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Q&A portion of this evening. My name is Eleni Jones. I'm a film and TV journalist and the co-host of Screenshot on BBC Radio 4, and I'm delighted to be hosting the Q&A portion of this evening. Please join me in welcoming to the stage the Academy Award and BAFTA-nominated cinematographer of Train Dreams, Adolpho Veloso.
Thank you. Still feels weird when you say Academy and BAFTA nominated.
Yeah.
I'm like, is that me? Like,
Yeah, it's you. It's exciting. Um, so it's kind of funny to walk into a room after people have just seen that film because it sets such a spell, I think. So I'm trying to match the mood and probably unsuccessfully.
yeah, we should
Yeah,
talk
take it
quietly
down a
and
bit.
yeah.
Yeah, less children's TV presenter vibes. So your director Clint Bentley co-wrote the script, adapted from the novella by Dennis Johnson, with his co-writer Greg Quader. Um, I'd love to know what you made of the screenplay when you first read it, and did you go back and read the novella too?
When I first read the script, actually, I was really surprised, and Clint was surprised too,
Mm.
but of how much I connected with it. Because I remember when he first sent me the script, he was like, "I'm not sure you're gonna connect with the story. It's the story about this American guy that
Yeah.
lived 100 years ago and in the middle of nowhere in America. He's a logger, and I'm not sure you, as a Brazilian, is gonna connect with anything at all in this movie." And I was honestly just happy to collaborate with Clint again because we worked together on Jockey, so I would have said yes to anything he sent my way. But I was really, really connected with the story and with the character for a lot of reasons. Like the film and the script had so many themes that I could connect with, but the main one being the fact that the story, the dynamics of Robert's life really resembled mine in a way. You know, the
Mhm.
story about this guy that works away from home and stays several months away with a bunch of people he never met before that he might never see again, and very eccentric people. And when he goes back home, it's always hard to reconnect with his family and his place and feel like he belongs to those places. So a constant feeling of misplacement
Mhm.
somehow, which is basically a cinematographer's life. You know, like we go and shoot a movie several months away from home, trying to like meet those people that you never met before and create a sense of family with them, but you might never see them again.
Mm.
A lot of eccentric people again, and then you go back home, and it's always hard for me to reconnect with my house and my family and feel like I belong to that place, or the same feeling of misplacement and the feeling that a lot of things change, like even small things change while you're away, so it's always like hard to feel like you really in peace in any of those places. So I really connected with that aspect besides the other things like grief, and which unfortunately almost all of us faced, or everybody's probably going to face at some point in life. And I don't know, immigration, being an immigrant myself. So there was so many aspects in the movie that I could connect with, that I just felt like I I I I could use that in favor of the story. And because I could connect with the story in that way, I also felt like it was part of my task to remove as much as possible layers that would not allow the audience to connect with
Mm.
those characters in a way.
Mm. So how do you go about doing that, removing layers?
Well, good question. But I feel like we really wanted to make the movie be as grounded as
Mhm.
possible, and I feel like there is a intrinsic problem with period movies, that everything feels so distant in a way, right? Like people dress in a different way, people behave in a different way, people live a completely different life from what we live. That you have already all those layers that like are just on the way of you connecting with those emotions, with those people. And we felt like removing a bit of that and shooting with natural light, for example, and
Yes.
being as naturalistic as possible, as realistic as possible, and making it feel like you're just another person there, experiencing all that with everybody else. could help in a way. So that was one of the big decisions, avoiding like a more impressionistic version of all that and trying to be as real as possible. And also the main theme, I think, in the movie when I first read it, um, that I could sense, like kind of the language that the script had was a kind of a memory lane more than a journalistic approach to like a biopic.
Yeah.
Felt like just someone telling random memories about someone else's story that we were trying to figure out how to translate that was really clear in the pages and in written to images, and where we landed because we were looking at so many pictures from the time period, like real logging pictures and families from that
Mm.
time, and also a lot of like reference images from Dorothea Lange's, for example, and the pictures she took during the Great Depression, which is kind of the same
Mhm.
era. And we realized that those images carried memory in a way, and we landed on this metaphor of um, wanting the movie to feel like you walk down a basement, you found a box full of pictures, you open that box and you're trying to figure out who that person was through those pictures in a way, like all those pictures that are out of order, and some pictures really posed, some pictures are more spontaneous, and some are just an impression of an
Mhm.
event or something like that. And looking at those pictures, you're trying to figure out that person's life in a way. And so we wanted the film to feel like that, and that kind of gave us a lot of material to work with, from the aspect ratio of the movie being like a 3:2 aspect ratio, to evoke that feeling of looking at like old family photos, to the way we would frame, the way the camera would behave, having a lot of really posed scenes where the camera doesn't move and everything is happening within the frame, to more spontaneous and organic camera moves and handheld and all different language that could kind of like live within the still image world.
Mm. I'm very struck by how the film combines these kind of epic, awe-inspiring landscapes with these very close moments of intimacy with the actors' performances as well. How do you, as a camera operator as well as a cinematographer, give the actors enough space to be as natural as possible and as intimate as possible, while also being close enough to capture the detail of those really subtle performances?
Well, I feel like it's one thing like we did Jockey in 2019, and Jockey was such a small movie, right? We did that movie with like a crew of 10 people probably, and a really small budget. And while this was a struggle and it has a lot of challenges, the one thing that was really magical about that was that it was a small footprint, that
Mm.
we had enough space because we didn't have trucks and a huge crew behind us. We could move the camera around. The actors had complete freedom to move, and we could adapt and feel like, okay, the scene is not working inside, let's go outside, and vice versa. So one of the first conversation was also like, we really hate a lot of things we did on Jockey. There's a huge list, but there's a few things that we liked, and that was one of the things. So how do we translate that into a much bigger movie? There is a period movie. We do have a lot of trucks. We do
Mm.
have a 100-person crew, and the idea was to protect the set itself. So while we had all those trucks, like how can we have all those trucks far enough that they are not within the shot, that we can actually move the camera around and rotate the camera, not worry about catching anything, and how can we have a smaller core of people around the camera that it's easier to move and that we're not catching anyone. Natural light plays a big part on that, because then you don't have C stands, you don't have like LED lights around,
Right.
anything like that. So the actors can actually inhabit that space and move around that space. Everything that we had on the set that were all built on location from our department that did an incredible job, where everything was practical. If they would open any drawers and they would want to do anything and suddenly cook in a scene, everything would work. The same way with the lighting and the camera, we would just follow them in a way that they could really inhabit that space and do their thing.
Mm.
And I was just trying not to mess it up, and
Mm.
just follow them and make sure I was there to capture whatever they were giving us.
Let's talk about that natural light thing because it is absolutely beautiful and obviously has lots of advantages for the actors. But I imagine it's a huge challenge as well. What is the biggest challenge of that?
Well, I think the main challenge is that you need to um, get everybody on board with it because you depend on all possible departments to be able to work like that. Not only our department to make sure you have all the practical lighting you need with like enough candles and gas lamps and oil lamps and real campfires, but also a huge conversation with producers and the ADs to make sure the schedule also works around that in a way. So it's not necessarily what everybody's used to do. So it needs to be a whole conversation during prep for everybody to understand that and to be on board with that and to be excited about it. And I feel like when you actually start shooting that way, everybody realizes all the amazing things that happen because of that, especially for the actors and the freedom everybody have, and the fact that you can suddenly decide to go outside and shoot a scene outside because it makes more sense or because the light is beautiful or whatever. The little kid doesn't want to be inside and is crying, wants to be outside, and you're not like gonna like stay 2 hours there waiting for the kid to suddenly read the script and agree with what the director wants. So there's so many advantages that I feel like at some point everybody gets on board and you also realize how faster you should, because even though you like need to schedule for certain windows, when you're actually shooting the scene, you don't need to stop to relight the scene to do the reverse, and you don't do that classic things about sending like the actors back to their trailers and you bring the stand-ins and you relight the scene and then everybody goes on the phones and the whole mood is lost in a way, so you just keep shooting. And I feel like that magic is hard to replicate if you're doing all those classic like stops in a way.
You must be
Obviously,
a natural light convert now. You'll never shoot another film with
well,
artificial light.
it's something that, to be honest, that I've been doing more and more, and it's kind of the way I learn how to do things because that's what I had, right? Like when I started, I was doing projects with no money at all, and like a music video for a friend, and no one ever watched it, and that kind of stuff. That
They
it
will
was
now.
it is basically what you have in the beginning. So I was learning that way. It was much more about like which windows to close or to open, which lamps to turn on or off, than like thinking about which lights to bring in
Mm.
a way. And then at some point I had access to lights, and I think there's a lot of reasons to use lights. I use them sometimes, and I feel like amazing cinematographers use them in an amazing way that I would never be able to replicate. But because I kind of learned that way, when I started using lights, often I would look and say like, "Oh my God, this is just like worse than what I was doing before with no money and no lights. So why am I doing that now? Just because I have access to it doesn't mean I need to." So it took a while so to go back to, okay, it's fine. I don't need to use, and I can go back to just opening a window and trying to be at the right place at the right time, even though that means that I need to convince 100 people now and not just like one actor.
Hmm.
But I feel like it was like going back to how everything started in a way.
Hmm. I want to up the conversation to any audience questions. Does anyone have any questions they'd like to ask Adolfo?
Ah, well,
Oh, sorry. Just waiting for the microphone. Not that you need it from there, but you know.
For the sound, I guess.
Yeah.
it's a very comfy room.
That was a really amazing film, so thank you. It tugged at all the heartstrings. Um, I saw a lot of I felt a lot of Terrence Malick's Tree of Life, and I was just wondering, obviously you spoke about natural light, but was there any other, I guess, visual poetry from shooting in Golden Hour? Because it's a very small time that you get to shoot the scenes.
Yeah, I feel like it is a small amount of time, but then suddenly everything works, like, and even for the actors, I would often hear from them like them say how incredible is the fact that then suddenly you know you have just 2 or 3 takes and you can deliver everything on those takes, which is different from doing a lot of coverage and then there's a wide and a close up, and exactly. And I feel like there is amazing things about that too, but then they need to deliver. They know they're gonna do like 20 takes, and then like they kind of choose sometimes to deliver more, because you cannot deliver everything you have 20 times. So I feel like the amazing thing about having 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, whatever, is that for those 40 minutes, everybody's delivering absolutely everything in a good way. So we never got to a place where we were like, oh, we don't have it. We're screwed. Like.
And was it a choice? Was there anything to the story that
Uh, especially, yeah, especially for the scenes in the cabin with him, like Joe Edgerton's character and Felicity Jones' character and the kids, and the kid. We wanted those memories. We talked about that, the memory feeling to it, but we wanted those memories to feel sweeter and more magical than other stuff in the movie because that were kind of the happiest moments of his life in a way. So everything that we shot around that time is really like either like when they are inside at night it's really warm and cozy firelight, and when they are outside it's magic hour or sunsets
was it
or
pure
stuff like
candle
that.
light that you shot?
Yes, 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 yes.
And I love that shot of the train, like going fast. And
Ah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, there was a bunch of like things that we chose because of the narrative, like shooting at that specific time of the day. And then we wanted the impact. For example, the first time there is like a harsh sun in the movie, like where the sun is really high and harsh, is when he gets to the house and it's just ashes, and he's there for the first time, and everything feels kind of hard and ugly, sort to say it, for the
like
first
my
time.
eyes went.
Yeah, yeah. Which was like again like a memory lane to that's how he remembers that, in a way. So that was the idea, at least.
It's not entirely natural light, though, right? What about the fire
Well,
scene?
that's the only we often say like 99% shot of in natural light because there's that one scene that we couldn't use fire. Um, Producers didn't let us burn the forest down. I
You
don't know
wanted
why.
to, of
Yeah,
course,
yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, that was the tricky scene because how do you replicate fire in a way that seems believable, knowing that throughout like 1 hour in the movie you're watching real fire, so you see the color on everybody's faces be one and the flickering be one, and everybody feels in a certain way because it's real fire, and then suddenly in one of the most important scenes in the movie you gonna have to use artificial lighting and you're gonna have to rely on VFX. So that was really stressful. Half of my gray hair is because of that. The other half was already there, but I was just like really nervous about it, and the whole process was during pre-production to just test different things and to figure out what would be the fixtures we used, and how we would use it in a way that it would be easier for VFX later to substitute that with fire, what elements we could shoot to give them enough information so the transition to the VFX fire would be good enough. And there was a lot of testing. We ended up using a rig that is actually used on music concerts because we
Mm.
needed something so large and tall. Um, Especially like in Seattle, around Seattle, and well, it's kind of hard to sort things. So it was a lot of testing, and I think we landed in a place that I'm happy with, and especially with the work that VFX did, and I don't think it pops from everything else, so I could sleep after
Mhm.
that, but it was definitely stressful.
Mhm. Mhm. Um, any more questions from the audience?
Let's go
Okay.
home.
Yes. All right. That was wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you to the
Thank
audience
you very
as
much.
well. Congratulations. Adolpho Veloso, Train Dreams.
Thank you.